right. Hi, Renee.
Hi.
The nurse asked me to come in and assist you with ambulating, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to get our gait belt and we'll get started.
Okay.
Now, this skill, we're going to be assisting our patient to ambulate. Now, as we know, ambulate means to walk, so I'm going to assist her to do that about 10 feet. One of the things I want you to look at before we do that is actually the gait belt itself. It's called a transfer belt, gait belt, and there are different styles of gait belts, so you want to make sure that you recognize when you go to your test site what kind they have. But this type here, you just go under by the rugged end, right here first, and then you're just going to put it on like a belt. So we're going to do that. Now, there are some things that you want to do in this skill prior to getting your patient up, and it's very important. Again, we talked about order specific. There are a lot of befores that you have to do prior to standing your patient, so we want to make sure that we do that. The first thing you want to make sure of course, is that your bed is in its lowest position and a safe level for your patient, and that it is very easy for your patient to get out. The other thing is you want to make sure that the bed wheels are locked. And as you can see right here on this bed, to lock these wheels, we would do that process right there. So the bed is in its locked position. We also want to make sure that we have our patient's shoes nearby so that when we get them up, that they have something to put on their feet. Now, this is very important when you're standing your patient up, is that you make sure that they have shoes on their feet. This is your critical step or highly important step in your skill. So you want to make sure that you put their shoes on prior to walking them. You want to make sure that the shoes have non-skid bottoms on them to keep them from sliding. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually help Renee into a sitting position. Now, on test day, when you ask them to sit up, you want to make sure that your hand is positioned somewhere on them to assist them, because the skill says assist, so you don't want them to do it alone. So what I'm going to do is just pull this back a little bit. Renee, I'm going to help you sit up on the side of the bed, okay? So would you just raise up a little bit for me? Just sit up. There we go. And if you would, I want you to swing your legs around here. I'm going to help you put your shoes on, okay? And just swing on to the side of the bed, just like this. You don't have to put your feet down yet. We're going to go ahead and put your shoes on. Now, I want you to come all the way to the end of your bed where your feet are flat on the floor for me. You want to make sure that their feet are flat on the floor. That's one of the before steps in this skill, and they're looking at all your befores, things you do before you actually stand your patient up. The other thing is you want to go ahead and put that gait belt around them to make sure that it is on, safe, and secure. So we're going to put it around her. Okay. Now you want to pay attention to your gait belt. When you're putting it on your patient, you want to make sure your hand is in between the belt and your patient, because you don't want it too tight on them. And the buckle here, you don't want that in the center of your patient. You want that more to the side. So we're going to put it here. I'm going to put my hand here. Just tighten it up. Just make sure you're okay. Okay. Now, one of the things you want to do, and your feet are good and flat on the floor. Okay. One of the things you want to make sure of prior to standing your patient also is that you give them instructions on what you're going to be doing. You always want to let them be a part of the process, but if you let them know what's happening, they're more at ease with the standing process. So, Renee, what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you some instructions before we stand, okay? One of the things I'm going to have you do before we stand up is you're going to put your hands on my shoulder. I'm going to brace your knees with mine, and I'm going to grab the gait belt, and we're going to count to 3. On 3, I want you to stand up with me, okay? Now, one of the things you want to make sure of is that your knees are next to your patient. You're blocking their feet. Now, some patients you will be able to go toe-to-toe and bend. Renee and I are a little different in height, so I would put my feet a little more to the side, but I'm still blocking her feet. But I'm going to make sure that I'm bracing her knees with mine, okay? Then I'm going to have her, go ahead, if you would, put your hands on my shoulder. You want to make sure that you grab the gait belt on both sides in an upward position like this here. And then we're going to count to 3, and then you'll stand with me, okay? Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. One of the things you want to make sure of is that you stand back a little bit, because you don't want to push your patient back on the bed. Now, also, when we stand, our weight automatically shifts. So you want to make sure that your gait belt is still secure. So I'm just going to check it, make sure it's not too loose. There we go. Now, one of the things I want you to also notice is where my hand is in the back of her. So I'm going to have her turn that way for a moment, Renee. When we're walking, one hand is going to be back here, okay, holding on the gait belt. So you want to remember that when you're walking your patient. Now, if you'll turn back to me. Now, when we're getting ready to walk, you want to make sure that you're in control of the walk when you're walking your patient. So I'm going to have her drop this hand here. I'm going to have her bring this hand around here, and she's going to turn in the direction we're going to be walking, and then you're going to stand slightly behind your patient. Again, Renee, if you'll turn around this way just a little bit so they can see where my hand is in the back. There we go. The reason you want to walk behind your patient and not beside them is because you want to always be in control of the walk. If for some reason your patient was to get dizzy or going to faint, you can't stop them from fainting. So you don't want to try to break a fall. You just want to make sure that they're safe and you're safe. So we're back here, so if she was to fall, we can just ease to the floor with protecting her head and her body. And then that's going to cause you not to get an injury as well. Now, when we're walking, we want them to keep their head up, and we're just going to walk toward that X on the floor. Just slowly walk behind your patient. Okay, and the evaluator will tell you how far to go, but you're going to take about 10 steps. Go to that. There you go. We're going to walk back to the bed. Again, you want to stay behind your patient just slightly, not too far behind them. Good. And if you would, just turn toward the bed. There you go. One of the things I also want to emphasize when you're walking your patients for safety reasons, you never want your patients to grab you here or grab my waist, Renee, or around the waist. Because, again, if they were to fall, they're going to pull you down as well. So you always want to make sure that you're in control of the walk, and that's why we position ourselves like this. Now we're going to help her back to bed. If you would, just turn facing the bed. There you go. Now, when you're at the bedside, one of the things you want to check is to make sure where the position is with your patient to the bed. You want them a little higher up to the head of the bed, if you'll step up just a little bit, because that positions them in bed. So when I put her back in bed, she don't have to pull up in bed. So that'll save her any, undue necessary movement in the bed. So now we're ready to sit back down. So we're going to do everything in reverse of what we did when we stood up. So if you put your hands here. Again, I'm going to block her feet to keep her safe. And then on the count of 3, we're going to sit down, and I'm going to bend with her. And she's just going to sit on the side of the bed. Okay? Okay. On the count of 3, we'll sit. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now notice that we didn't take the gait belt off until we were right back on the bed, because we want to keep that on her while we're walking at all times. Now we're going to take the gait belt off. And one of the things you want to remember, never just pull the gait belt off your patient, because that can cause a skin burn. If she just had a gown on and I pulled this off, I definitely could cause an issue on her skin, and we don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you lift your gait belt off your patient. Never put it around your neck or anything like that. You want to lay it to the side, because the most important thing is to get her back in bed safely first. We're going to go ahead and remove her shoes. We're going to assist her back to bed. And again, the word assist means your hands should be touching them, okay, in some capacity. Have her lay back. There we go. You okay? Mm-hmm. All right, good. We're going to get her back situated. And as I always tell you, we always want to make sure our patient's room looks nice and neat prior to leaving them. Okay? And then, of course, we're going to make sure that this call signal is within reach. Now, here's your call signal, okay? You just give us a call if you need something, okay? Okay. The bed is in its lowest position, and we're going to make sure, of course, that we move the shoes out of the way so that we don't trip over those. And then we're going to say to the evaluator, I wash my hands. The skill is now complete.